Hey everybody, so welcome back to Jim Bob's Garden. So today what we got going on is sweet potatoes. Now sweet potatoes are a great thing to grow down here in the southeast, down here in the Jacksonville area, and there's a couple of different reasons. One, they're very, very disease and pest resistant. You can look at these leaves all around here and pretty much they're doing fine. I mean, no issues, no real bug problems. It's also a great root vegetable, and the even better part is I didn't plant these. These particular sweet potatoes just volunteered from last year's sweet potatoes that grew, that we didn't get all the roots up out of the ground, or we didn't get all the actual sweet potatoes themselves up out of the ground. So they just volunteered here, and so far they've been doing really well. All right, so they're very disease resistant, very pest resistant. And the other thing is, the leaves on the sweet potatoes, particularly if you get the young, tender ones, are very, very edible. All right, and when it's really hard to grow in the late summer to early fall, right around in this area, because we have that, I call it the dead season, the brown season, whatever. But basically, late July, or even July all the way through August and September, it's really hard to get things growing because we get so much rain and heat, and I'm not sure what, and pests, and it just, a lot of things die off. It's just really hard to keep things alive. So the sweet potatoes are one of the things that we let grow, and we use those for salad greens. All right, it's really nice salad green, very tasty. It's a great way to augment your salads. All right, so the plan today is I'm going to get all these vines up, get them out of the way, and then we're going to go through and dig with our hands and see what we find for treasures in our sweet potato garden. All right, I'll be right back after I get rid of the vines. All right, so now we've got most of the big vines out of the way. We've got a huge wheelbarrow full of vines, which I'll put in the compost, and we're going to go through and we're going to pull the rest of this stuff out, weeds and everything else. But the big thing is we want to start digging. All right, but you can use a potato fork like this, which I use for my compost, and loosen up the soil if your soil isn't as soft as mine. But I will tell you that every time I try to use this, I've ended up stabbing my sweet potatoes and jacking up the biggest, best of the bunch. So I'm going to do it with my hands, because I have the nice soft soil to be able to do so. And then that'll also help me get rid of a lot of the dollar weed, like so, and at least knock that dollar weed population back quite a bit. So I just start over here and start digging around with my hands, and this is what you find. All right, now I will say that it doesn't look like my sweet potatoes got as big this year, though some of the best ones are still in the ground. All right, and one of the things, like this one right here, it goes deep, and so if I was to just yank at it from the top, part of the problem is I'll end up breaking it. All right, like a big one like that would snap off right there, and I wouldn't get the sweet potatoes that I was hoping to get. Now, one of the things about sweet potatoes is essentially anywhere that vine touches ground, it can start developing roots. And wherever it develops roots, that's where the sweet potatoes are going to start to grow. The other thing is, all right, this one here, I have 2x10 wood edges to my my raised beds here. This one here was buried, I mean, probably that deep. So the sweet potatoes go really deep sometimes. So again, if I was to just use that, the tines on this fork, you can see that's longer than the tines, and oftentimes what will happen is I'll snap it off and leave a good chunk of that at the bottom. And that's why I like to do this with my hands, so I don't lose much sweet potatoes in the process. And it stirs up the dirt, allows me to get all of this dollar weed out of there, get the garden bed cleaned up, loosened up. Though it will compact somewhat for the fall, through the fall and into the winter, because we're about a week ahead of Thanksgiving right now. Now, with that being said, let's talk about sweet potatoes themselves and what do you use them for. I primarily like to have sweet potatoes around the Thanksgiving time frame. I know a lot of people make sweet potato pie. Some people use it for French fries. A lot of people like to use the sweet potatoes, particularly down here where they grow so well and so easily. Because literally, all of this that I'm digging up now was volunteer. I did not plant any of this. I do have a couple of sections over on the other side where I did buy some slips because I wasn't sure that my sweet potatoes were going to come up this year. They didn't really volunteer as quickly as they had in the past years, and so I went ahead and bought a few slips. I think it was like one little batch of 6 or something like that. But those haven't grown as well as these here, but that's also part of the soil thing. So let me go ahead and get this done. It's going to take me a few. Hopefully I'll get it all done today. But the reason I'm really working hard to get this done now is because Thanksgiving is coming, and that is our sweet potato season in my family, when we really like to have that sweet potato casserole that so delicious. And then hopefully we'll have some for the Christmas time frame and so on. Alright, so let me get to going and I'll show you what kind of harvest I've actually ended up with. Alright, so basically I've dug up the first 3 feet. You can see that little trellis there, that's 3 feet wide, just in the first 3 feet of the garden. And you can see I got a couple more floating around down in there. This is what I've gotten. Alright, a healthy amount of sweet potatoes. Okay, so one of the things you don't want to do apparently is you don't want to wash these. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take these and I'm just going to rub them lightly, get some of the soil off. Alright, and then I'm going to set them here on this pull chair and let them dry out so I can get the rest of the soil off. Alright, so you want these someplace, they recommend on a porch where it's covered, but we're not looking at any rain anytime soon, and I got to get these cured. Now, from what I understand, you want to have about a week to 2 weeks of 85-degree temperatures with 70 to 80% humidity. Now our humidity is going to be a little bit lower than that here for the next week or so. Remember, I want these for Thanksgiving. Alright? But this is going to have to do. We're also going to be in the 70s. So in order to get up to that 80-degree mark, I'm going to want to leave these in the sun to heat them up a little bit. Now, what the curing process does is a couple different things. One, what it's going to do is it's going to allow the starches inside of the sweet potato to actually make them sweeter by turning into sugars. All right. Now, not all of these are going to be used for Thanksgiving. I got way more than I will probably use for Thanksgiving. Some will be used for Christmas. So what they say is 1 to 2 weeks, 80 to 85 degree temperatures, preferably in a shaded area, which we just aren't going to have until probably end of next week after Thanksgiving. And then Hello, Mr. Kitty. How are you? At any rate, this is the cat. I don't know if you've been watching my videos. This is the cat that just kind of showed up on us, and now belongs to us. She has gone from a little bitty kitten to a really big cat. Anyway, back to sweet potatoes. So, what we're going to do is try and get these to cure as quickly as possible before Thanksgiving, and then after that, after you do the 2 weeks, week to 2 weeks, then what you want is after that you want to store them in 55-degree temperatures, someplace cool and dark. Well, I don't have that either. So what I will do is I'll put these out in the garage in a box, or in a, I've got an old laundry hamper. I'll probably put them in the laundry hamper, and I'll leave them out in the garage so that they can kind of cool off, because it will stay cooler out there. But you know, this is Jacksonville. We'll have 85-degree days in the middle of winter, all right, or 80-degree days anyway. So it is starting to cool off, it's starting to feel a little more like fall. For the most part, but we do have those hot days. But either way, I've stored them out there before, and they lasted a really long time. So, you know, the idea is just to make the sweet potatoes sweeter. You want them to store and cure as best as possible. All right? It doesn't change their edibility. They can still be eaten. They just won't be as sweet. But, you know, I mean, my sweet potato casserole gets covered with marshmallows anyway, so it's not like we're going to be lacking for sweetness. Now, I'm going to talk to you about these once I get them all laid out. And, you know, another thing, you know, people have been eating sweet potatoes for thousands of years. And nobody had climate control back in the day. So they probably did just like what I'm doing. Just let them sit out in the sun for a little while. Get them nice and warm for a week or so. And then put them in a cellar, which I don't have. So you can see this is my harvest for that first 3 feet of that garden. Now that was also the biggest chunk of where most of the sweet potatoes are growing, is right there in that first 3 feet. One of the issues with that garden is that it doesn't get sun. Like right now, I get maybe 2 or 3 hours, maybe 4 hours of sun tops. Because of the way the trees are behind and the sun has gone so far to the south, it's mostly shaded throughout the afternoon and even into the evening time. I'll get a little bit of sun first thing in the morning, but that's about it. So I think that that's probably not the best place to grow them, because they didn't get a good start. Where now is pretty much, like I said, the time I want to pull them out. Had I left them in there longer, I probably would have gotten bigger, fatter sweet potatoes, to be honest with you. We're going to experiment with that. I'll let you know how that goes in a further video. Because I did plant some in another spot, and we'll see if they got any bigger. But it's not really a fair comparison, because that soil isn't nearly as fertile as the soil that I have these in. And a lot of compost has gone into this soil and so on. But that's still a really nice harvest. We'll be able to have our sweet potato casserole for Thanksgiving and Christmas at least. And then, you know, several times throughout the year. Not really as happy with that, just because of the fact that they aren't as big and fat. There's a lot of them that were, you know, smaller, just not that big. And, you know, I mean, they could have been a lot bigger. We did have a few of them that were good sized. You know, some nice fat ones. This one looks like it's starting to rot. That's the other concern, is I don't want to leave these in the ground too long so they start to rot out. But we have some decent sized sweet potatoes that will make for some good eating later on. So that's how to get them out of the ground. This is how to cure them and let that starch turn into sugars. So I don't know, I don't do a lot of cooking videos, maybe I'll do a cooking video on them. I don't know. I'm not the greatest cook. My wife is so much better. All right. But that's how I go about getting my sweet potatoes. I've been really fortunate. You know, once we planted them in there, they volunteered back every year. And in fact, it now almost becomes a problem in certain areas because I don't really want them completely covering the soil. But I may look into trying to incorporate that into the garden master plan, because if I don't have to compost because I have a whole bunch of coverage from leaves, that will help to retain the moisture in the soil throughout the summertime, and maybe help things to grow a little bit better, or at least in the spring. Again, these don't really grow in the spring, so I'm not really sure how to go about it from here. Maybe you guys can offer some suggestions. But that's my sweet potato crop so far, just in that first 3 feet, and I'm sure it will grow exponentially as I dig up the rest of the garden, get it cleared out so I can start planting back in it come spring. But in the meantime, get me a nice harvest of food I can eat. All right, thanks for stopping by. Do me a favor, give me a like and a subscribe, and let me know what you think. And most importantly, grow something. Get something growing in your yard. And if you live down here in the southeast, sweet potatoes are fantastic. Not only do you get the sweet potatoes, but you also get the greens. And the greens are really tasty. They're a great addition to your salads, particularly in the summertime down here where it's really hard to get things to grow. Sweet potatoes will grow throughout the summertime and give you those fresh green leaves that you can munch on throughout the year. All right, thanks for stopping by. Y'all come back and see me. And like I said, grow something.